Hello, this is Benjamin Bloom. I have just witnessed Arsenal 1, West Ham 0. Rare for me to go and see a football match competed in by two Premier League teams. So this was the Carabao Cup quarter-final. I did see two Carabao Cup matches earlier in the season. I saw Ipswich beat Luton and then lose at Crystal Palace. So this is the third League Cup match I've seen this season. As you would imagine, both managers did not put out their star players. I know that Arsenal have a league game on Friday against Liverpool, which is a big important one. I'm sure West Ham will have one on Saturday. So mainly reserve teams. Arsenal 4-3-3, Debussy, Chambers holding, Kolasinac across the back. Coquelin sat with El Neni and Willock, who I think is 16 years old, very young midfielder. Walcott front right, Welbeck front left, Giroud down the middle. West Ham in a very defensive 3-5-2, so Hart in goal. Three centre-backs sat there, Collins in the middle, Ogbonna to his left, Reed to his right. Two wing-backs, Cresswell, very interested in him, former Ipswich Town player. In my capacity as an Ipswich fan, it was nice to see someone with an Ipswich link, although I was expecting it to be Maitland-Niles, but no. So Cresswell playing right wing-back, which is strange for him, given he's a left-back, but there you go. Masuaku, left wing-back for West Ham. Aubameyang then sat in front. Then you had Quina and Rice in front of him, with Ayew off, Chicharito up front. West Ham's system pretty much was three centre-backs, two full-backs. They didn't spend much time as wing-backs, and then one sitting. If you count that up, that's six players kind of holding in defensive positions. So that, unfortunately, made the first half pretty dull. So the pattern, West Ham sat back, big lines. And the problem was both teams, the three in midfield for both teams, Coquelin, El Neni, Willock and Obiang, Quina and Rice, not much shape, both kind of flat, both coming up against each other. So the midfield just got completely cluttered up, and Walcott and Welbeck for Arsenal were a bit too far forward to receive the ball. So basically, massively uneventful sort of first 10 minutes. Couple of counter-attack issues for Arsenal. Quina looked good for West Ham. He looked their only real danger in the first sort of openings of the game. Debussy forces a corner on 12, and Arsenal kind of start to get a little bit of territory, but without ever getting behind or creating any chances. Arsenal force a couple of corners. West Ham look fairly comfortable. As I said, the midfield threes both coming up against each other. 25 minutes, still no attempts on goal. Arsenal didn't really look like getting past West Ham unless it was a counter-attack. West Ham looked comfortable, even though Arsenal had the territory, all playing in front of them, basically. 35 minutes, still no efforts on goal, and it wasn't until the 38th minute that Kolasinac comes in from left-back. Him and Debussy did try and get forward. He comes in on his right foot. It's a bit of a rubbish shot, but a shot nonetheless. And that kind of then lifted Arsenal. Coquelin, lovely ball down the left as Kolasinac again. Great cross this. So Giroud comes to the near post. Walcott's arriving in, as he should. The front three working well. He's got a free header from about 10 yards. Obviously, I see championship players every week. So the idea of Theo Walcott being bad is a bit foreign to me, but I can understand if you're an Arsenal fan how he's frustrated. That's a really, really good chance. He over-engineers the header, tries to get too much on it, puts it wide. Arsenal are on top here, and they get a goal on 42 minutes. El Neni, he spreads it wide. Debussy's come forward again on the overlap. He heads it back into the box. Welbeck is making a run towards the centre-halves. His first attempt, half miss-hit, half blocked, and then the second one falls to him, and he kind of knees it in over the line, sort of scrambles it in. So Arsenal on top and score while they're on top. If you're West Ham now, your entire game plan is predicated on presumably you surviving as long into the game as you can at 0-0 and then unleashing Carroll. So this is always the thing with these defensive game plans. What the hell do you do when you go behind? Arsenal could have had another one, cross from the right. Reed and Cresswell get in a muddle. It gets worked out to Willock. He takes a touch and curls it right-footed, bit of a weak shot round the post. So very slow, very tepid first half. West Ham quite happy to sit back. Arsenal really were only on top for 5 minutes, but they scored when they were on top, and that really would be worrying in the West Ham kind of position of, well, we're going to sit back. Surely they would have to come out in the second half, wouldn't they? Not so much. West Ham had a fair old support there. They give the ball away 3 times in the first 2 minutes, West Ham, and the fans not so much happy. I think while they were heroically holding out, fine, but as soon as the goals behind, then problems. 15 minutes in, Chicharito looks like he's brought down. He comes together with Holding. It looked a fair shout for a foul in a dangerous position, but ref calls that one a collision. Masuaku breaks forward. He's brought down on the edge of the box, and on 63 minutes, West Ham actually have a shot. Cresswell, the ex-Ipswich man, he tries to do the disguise thing where the wall is ahead of him. He's here. He's going to swing his body and curl it back. He just gets far too much on it and puts it well wide. That happens to be his last touch of the game. Cresswell goes out. Andy Carroll comes in. Chicharito, who I felt sorry for, who ploughed a very lonely furrow up front. I'm sure he'll play in West Ham's next game, so he gets a rest. But he comes out and Sacco goes in. So Sacco and Carroll go up front. Rice goes to wing-back. Ayew drops into midfield. So more attacking players on the pitch, you know, just by virtue of a midfielder kind of going to wing-back and a more forward midfielder dropping into centre midfield. But this did now make West Ham quite direct. The West Ham fans did seem quite pleased to see Carroll. That kind of lifted them a little bit for a few minutes, and the style then starts to get quite sort of direct after that. Counter attack here for Arsenal on 72, chipped over the top. Welbeck's in a foot race with Joe Hart. They're both heading towards the kind of side of the area, the right hand side. Of course, in a foot race, Welbeck's always going to beat Joe Hart. He nicks it. Hart slides out. He does take him down, covering defenders back, and Welbeck going away from goal. So not obvious goal scoring opportunity, not inside the box. So you could probably say Hart took one for the team and judged that fairly well, but only, I guess, a foot away from a penalty. And how could he, with the ball moving, Welbeck moving and him moving, known it would have been there? So maybe he would have stood up if it was further in. Elneny tries to be clever and sneak the free kick in the near post. I once saw Dean Windass do that and score for Oxford. Everyone's expecting the cross and he hits it low. It's knocked out for a corner. Trouble for Arsenal here. Giroud is making a sprint forward on a counter-attack, and he stops. He hops for a minute. He feels down at his right hamstring, feels it again, and then he lays down on his back. I don't know whether that's a tweak, a strain, or worse still, a tear. He was immediately substituted, although he did walk himself off, so it's probably not a tear. So Walcott now goes through the middle. On comes Reece Nelson. He takes Walcott's spot on the right. A nice run through by Willock, breaks right through, and kind of between Walcott and the other Arsenal players, they can't do anything with the ball when it breaks through. Quina comes out, Arnautovic comes in, Willock goes out, good stint from him. Sheaf comes in, Coquelin out, De Silva in. 4 minutes stoppage time, nothing doing. So fairly sort of tepid affair. I watch Championship football every week, didn't have the intensity of some Championship games. I can kind of understand. I think the managers in these tournaments, when they get to the semi-finals and the finals, they kind of take it seriously. But I think a lot of them are, well, let's put some youngsters out. If we win, great. If we lose, no big deal. No one gets injured. And I try and make everything a net game by putting youngsters in. So maybe it'll become a bit more serious then. If I were an Arsenal fan, star men, it wasn't the greatest performance in the world. They obviously got the win against a very defensive West Ham team. I would say Elneny, of everybody, was trying to make it tick in midfield, took all the set pieces and was trying to kind of force the issue through with his passing. He was kind of busy and used the ball well. Both the fullbacks tried to get forward, Debussy and Kolasinac, and obviously they were key in Arsenal being on top. And Debussy, although he won't quite get an assist for that because it hit a West Ham guy, really did set up the first goal for Welbeck. I would be impressed with Willock if I was an Arsenal fan. He's very, very young, and I think sometimes with these young players, it's not a case of, oh, are they going to come in and score the winning goal or tear up the game? No. Can they cope against all these seasoned pros who are bigger, stronger, and more savvy in here? And he did, and he used the ball well. So he looks a good prospect. Obviously, whether he can get anywhere near the Arsenal team is a different matter. But the way Arsenal use their youth policy, whether he can then go out on loan and maybe somewhere like Ipswich, maybe he can go out on loan and get minutes there, increase his value, and then either make a play for the Arsenal team or make Arsenal some money for a sale. West Ham, I know they've had a good run of 3 games under David Moyes. They've drawn with Arsenal, beaten Chelsea and beaten Stoke away. So they're in a good moment. I don't know whether they were practicing their away system for the rest of the season and this very, very defensive 3-5-2. As I say, that only works if you don't concede a goal and then you push out slightly bit by bit, maybe with a substitute, try and snatch one. It was very interesting to see Andy Carroll. I've never seen him play. You can see why, if he could get everything together, he just looks like a monstrously kind of not typical big guy because he's mobile as well and scares defences, but Arsenal handled him fine. Looking for a star man for West Ham, clearly I would say Quina, the 36 midfield, used the ball very well, was kind of at the centre of everything like bright that West Ham have. I don't know anything about him. I'm not a Premier League supporter, so I don't know whether he gets in the team, whether he's near the team, but he certainly looked like a good player tonight. Nice to see Cresswell from an Ipswich fan's point of view. Nice to see someone come through from Tranmere and be a Premier League kind of regular player and an England squad player, making a good living at that level, who came through our club. So that was great. In terms of the experience, first time I've been to the Emirates, so really happy to kind of tick that off my Groundhopper app. I'll do that when I finish making my video because I'm a nerd. It's not a soulless stadium like all these new ones. It's already kind of got some history. They've done a good job of putting up all Arsenal's honours around it. There's statues, there's a museum outside. Yes, okay, it was a League Cup game, so, and I'm one of them, a lot of kind of touristy people there spending most of the game on Instagram and taking videos and selfies, but so be it. There's no bad views in the ground. I'm the one who went to Luton in the 3rd round moaning about the posts and the wooden seats everywhere. No bad view in the ground. I was sat up in the upper tier and I saw everything absolutely fine. So really nice to have gone there. Not much cool being a Championship fan. Interesting watching these Premier League players. The big difference you find is just technically, just all of them have a good first touch and can play the ball in ways that would be applauded in the Championship and just standard there. So interesting to see that. The pace wasn't that much greater. I think you get a slick pace, a fast pace with Premier League players, and I think you get a fast pace but chaotic with Championship players. But there's certainly a few I've seen that could probably raise up to that level at some point. Maybe not Arsenal elite, but there you go. So Arsenal go into the semi-finals. Chance of some silverware for them, given that I don't know where they're going to finish in the league. That might be a nice boost for them if they can go all the way in that competition. West Ham, they're above the relegation zone. I think Moyes has got them working hard and looking nice and solid. Interesting to see both teams. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you're an Arsenal fan, do you think they need to focus and go through and win this competition? If you're a West Ham fan, was that a good exercise in away performances for the rest of the season and setting up to try and kind of counter? Maybe they need to come out a little bit more. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have I called it right? Have I called it wrong? Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Give me a subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at Benjamin Bloom. You probably have no reason to if you're an Arsenal or a West Ham fan, but for more Ipswich Town related comment, you can listen to the Blue Monday podcast on Acast and iTunes. Thank you very much for watching.